Hello and welcome to Fanatic. I'm your host Greg, and Fanatic is a way for me to talk about areas of the Games Workshop aspect of hobby gaming that I don't get to talk about in my 30k show or my Adeptus Titanicus show, the Imperial Truth and Full Stride. If you are interested in those and don't already listen, then they're searchable through your podcatchers or iTunes. But yeah, Fanatic is a way for me to talk about the other things I like to do in the hobby that aren't strictly related. So I do play Age of Sigmar, I play 40k, I like to play Blood Bowl and Necromunda. I don't have much time to do all those. And various other games, I like to read the books, and we will talk about things like, on various shows, we'll talk about books, or all these other game systems, or sometimes just to talk to interesting people who don't necessarily fit under those previous headings. As I've said, there are, so far I've interviewed a couple of people. Neil, who's our guest on this one, is a bit different in that he's genuinely famous. He's been a world champion in his field, as we talk about in the interview. And I always think it's really interesting to get, the view of someone who is pretty different than the normal, in bunny ears, people we get to talk to in these conversations. If we're having them at an event or what have you, it's not very often you get to talk to people like that who are doing so well in their field. Now, there are some people that we meet on the scene, but Neil lives in, it's a slightly different world when he's on TV performing. And as I say, as a world champion, to be literally, to be clarified at the top of your field, number one ranked player in the world 3 times, things like that. So I thought it might be interesting to get him on and have a chat. I did have a plan for an interview that was maybe a bit more structured, a little bit more focused on the competitive side, because as he explains in the interview, that's what he's about. But I didn't necessarily think that was right for this show, and I assumed, and it sounds like it will happen, that other shows will have him on that maybe that fits a little bit more there. So this show is even more rambly than it can be normally with me. That's my style. We generally try and chill out and have a chat. This one ends up with us jumping between subjects a fair amount, but that's fine. It's all good. I think the interview went well. I found some stuff interesting as we were going through it. Hopefully you guys will too. If you are interested in going back and listening, there are a few Fanatic episodes, not as many as I wanted, but hopefully I'm going to change that soon. And if you like anything else, if you're into 30k gaming, the Imperial Truth is one of the oldest long-running show for 30k gaming, and then we also have a lot of author interviews on those as well. So if you read the Horus Heresy books, or you're interested in Warhammer writers, then there might be something of interest to you. People like Dan Abnett, Graham McNeil, trying to think who else we've had on, Laurie Golding, Jim Swallow, Gav Thorpe, Chris Raitt, Nick Kime, and others as well. So maybe that's something you want to check out, then feel free. And if you're into Adeptus Titanicus, or think you might be, we also have Full Stride as well, as I've said. If you do want to contact us at any point on the show, then please feel free to email greg@theimperialtruth.com, or you can get me on Twitter @ChildOfFang, or you can, there is a Facebook page for Fanatic. It's not used a great deal, but I will keep it up there. I'll try maybe to update it a little bit. Normally it's just there kind of to tell you the show's out now. But those are the 3 ways you can get in contact. And if you have a question or anything like that, some feedback, then please feel free. Be great to hear from you. And all those should be in the show notes as well. But I won't wait any longer. We'll go straight into a little bit of music, and then we'll have Neil on the show, and we'll close out from there. Thank you for listening. Well, joining me now, we've got a man who, if we were in the Crucible in Sheffield, would need no introduction. But, we're on a wargaming podcast. You maybe need a little bit more. Mr. Neil Robertson, how are you doing?
Hey, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Excellent. So, just to get a little picture frame for people who don't recognise that name, you're a professional snooker player?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I've been pro since 2003. I've had a very successful career, more successful than what I thought I would achieve starting out in the game. I've won kind of every big tournament there is to win, and being world number one, world champion. Won the Triple Crown, which is like the World Championships, the Masters, UK Championships. There are 3 major events, and currently ranked 4 in the world at the moment.
Excellent. Magnus appreciates those achievements for sure. I also noticed as well you're the first player to make 100 centuries in a season.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, very special achievement. I think it was in the 2014 season, and no one's managed to do it since. Very, very proud record, and it'd be nice to get close to it again one day.
Yeah, I mean, that was. I haven't watched snooker regularly since I was at college the second time round, which was probably Ronnie making his fastest ever 147, I think. I've seen it on the
5
TV.
5 minutes, 20 seconds.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Seen it on the TV and kind of, still know players in the game, but not watched it. And I was surprised that no one else had done that centuries thing. That puts you right up there. That's really awesome. But we're only here to talk about your sporting achievements so much. You're obviously, because you're on here, you're a Warhammer player as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I got involved in the hobby 3 years ago. I guess I was first introduced to it when I was just a teenager. I was only maybe 14, and in Melbourne, just walking past like a games workshop, and just thought, oh wow, what's this? And so I first got into it then, and only for about a year, and then just sort of interest just sort of dropped off a little bit, and then it took so many years since then. The funny thing is that every time I go back to Australia for a few weeks in my off season, my mum and I would be like walking around the city or something, and we'd see like one of the stores, and I'd always say to her, "Geez, it'd be great to get back into the hobby again." Like always loved like the art side of things, and the game looks great as well. So it was Christmas 3 or 4 years ago. She just sent over like a basic kind of like paint set and like a box of like orcs and Gretchen, and just said kind of like, away you go, just like, have fun with it and just see if you like it or not. And because I was looking for like a hobby to do, something in between playing matches, or, it's quite important to do something that you enjoy in your downtime.
Yeah.
And I just sort of like got started with that, and then went down to my local store in Cambridge, and then sort of started learning about like the lore and stuff like that. I always liked Chaos when I collected the models. I got like one of those like I had like a metal dreadnought, and like they're all metal. Absolutely. when I collected them. I think the Abaddon I had was metal as well. That would be locked away somewhere deep in my mum's collection of old things, and so I'd love to actually get it out and compare like the paint job I did back then to like how I paint now. So I treat it very seriously. I try to be as good as I can at whatever I do, even if it's just a hobby. And so I try and paint really well, and also I really enjoy the competitive aspect of the hobby too. I get a lot of enjoyment out of playing the game.
Yeah, and that's where I first was aware that you played. I think I saw on Twitter you'd been at Bad Moon, which is a place in London, and done pretty well in the tournament there. And it was like, oh, cool. It's funny how we have how celebrities spark something in notice. We take more notice even if we're not, even if it's not someone you normally would think about as well. But
that's right. Yeah, it was the Bad Moon Cafe in London, which is an amazing store. They got great tables and everything, and it was a GT event, it has to be 28 players or over to class as a GT, and I got 5th, which I was like really, really happy with. It's nice to sort of be able to play in the odd tournament here and there, sort of in between snooker tournaments, or when I've got maybe a quiet month or so. And it's kind of funny the amount of people that I've got to know over the past sort of few months with just like simple Twitter posts of like me just like painting a model, like a work in progress of something that I'm doing, and then like I talked to Darren Latham quite a bit. Like he's like an amazing like painter and real inspiration in many ways for the hobbyists out there with Warhammer. And so getting a lot of tips off him certainly doesn't go amiss either.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic, and he's like actually a lot of the good painters. Others will know, listeners will know, but my co-host, who used to be co-host on the Imperial Truth, has won a Slayer sword. So I've spent I've spent a few years kind of hobnobbing with the people who can actually paint, and although I'll never be at that level, I've kind of developed an understanding, and I know people in those groups, and almost without doubt, they're very eager to share what they do. And Darren, now he's doing his tips and everything. It's fantastic that he doesn't have to do any of that. That's he gives back into the community, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so and that was, if we go back. So you've been sent these models, which you've been looking at doing. Was it the models that attracted you initially? Or were you fully aware of you wanting to play games as well?
Well, when I was 14, 15, I never really played the game properly. Just like my brother and myself, we kind of collected various models and just tried to play the game. It was kind of hard to just try and pick up, read the rules, and just play without actually going to the store and actually learning off the employees there, because the rules are very complex. And stuff like that, but I always enjoyed the painting aspect of it, and I guess that's what sparked the interest was the painting side of things. And so when she sent over the models and the paints and stuff like that, it was just start painting again. And I kind of just went onto YouTube and just typed in how to paint orcs or something like that, and saw some pretty cool guides. I think was it Mini Wargaming had some really cool videos with things, and then I think one of them was when you're on YouTube and you're clicking videos, and all of a sudden you see more links to other ones. I spent all day kind of just watching Warhammer videos, and I think Dave, one of the guys at Mini Wargaming, did this how to get started in Warhammer, and it was a really cool, fun video that he did, and I was instantly sort of inspired to just collect a small army and then see how I go, and so it all started from there really. And I've still got the orcs that I painted, and I compare them to the models that I can do now, and it's pretty amazing sort of how far I've come, I guess.
Awesome. I think we're about the similar age, and I would have started when I was 12, really, properly understanding the hobby. When you got sent those models, and when you've jumped into YouTube and all that, how much of that was a shock to you, the hobby between when you started at 14 and now?
Yeah, just absolutely huge. I think YouTube and just in general, even with going back to what I do with snooker, even the things you can learn off coaches and things like that always post things on YouTube, it's absolutely incredible. And there's just so much information out there, and I guess I'm very happy that I'm part of a time we live in where you can pretty much search for anything, for any tips or stuff like that. Darren Latham's posting videos on how to make your own wet palette and just all kinds of things. And so to have that information out there really speeds up the process, I guess, for anyone learning the hobby for the first time. Sure. You can avoid a lot of mistakes that most people would usually make. And so it's a brilliant time to be involved in the hobby for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So you've got these models. You jumped into YouTube. I take it you've probably gone down to the shop at some point. How did you get from? How quickly, should I say, did you get from there to independent gaming? Because that's a fair leap, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I went down to the shop and just asking for tips. One of the guys who worked there at the time was a really good painter. He would get pins and stuff like that in the Golden Demon competitions. And one of the guys, his name's Storm, he had his army just recently, actually, over the maybe within the last 6-7 months, he had his Gretchen army in the White Dwarf magazine.
Oh, right, yeah.
So those guys were great to learn off and, give me tips. And so I'd go down to practice, and then straight after practice, I'd like take my hobby stuff and go into the store and hang out with them and paint and learn off them. Learn about like the game, which would have been 7th edition at the time. And it wasn't long before I saw the Khorne Demonkin like codex and stuff. And I always, whenever I played like video games or anything like that, I've always been very merely combat based. Sure. So the Khorne Demonkin really drew itself to me, and then so I just started collecting that, like the demons, mixing the demons and the Chaos Space Marines. I thought was really cool too.
Yeah,
and and really fun to paint as well, like red and like a lot of like blood and all that sort of stuff. And so that was really cool. So sort of from that moment on, I would always try and keep up with the most, with the competitive scene of things, and I think 8th edition, when that came along, really improved the game overall, I felt, and it's great to see GW what they're doing with the hobby now, where they're releasing the new rules all the time and trying to update the game as much as possible to make it as fair as possible. Which something that quite a few years ago they weren't so keen on. The editions didn't update too often, and some rules would stay broken for a very long time, and which certainly isn't the case at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. They own their game now in all aspects of what they're doing, rightly or wrongly. Whether they get it right, whatever happens with it, they own it and they take action on it, which is good to see. Having, as I say, played a long time in the eras when they didn't. So, was it always 40k for you? Have you looked?
Well, when I started a few years ago, I don't think fantasy, I think, may have been coming towards the end or something, or Age of Sigmar had just come out.
Sure.
Sort of one of the two. And I know that upset quite a few of the fantasy players, right? That their armies just pretty much didn't exist anymore, or like the world was destroyed by chaos or something. Yeah. So I quite like Age of Sigmar. I think the models are just absolutely amazing. But I feel as though I'm more drawn to like the 40k kind of universe. And then, some of the guys in the store, talking about 30k, and I'd watch a couple of games. I'm like, oh, wow, what's all this? And they suggested that I read the first 3 Heresy books. So I picked those up and I read them, and I really loved Loken, the character. He was, I don't know, I just loved the way his character was written. It was really enjoyable to go through that journey. And then, I felt, I guess with Horus as well, when he kind of got betrayed, and Erebus and stuff like that, and just the way that chaos sort of had its influence and stuff, and to see and to learn where all that came from. And then then that actually had a real impact on me and how I viewed things. And then so I wanted to get started into 30k, because of that. But then I thought, it's not too bad, because a lot of the 30k models you can just use in 40k anyway. But I just didn't really have time to always cross over everything. I kind of only had to pick one thing, and so it's just 40k. Although 30k, I think is awesome as well.
30 curious is a terminology we like to use in our little segment of the hobby. And that's a problem with 30k is not having the same or similar rule set now. It's a lot more investment to get into it than it used to be, and that's an issue. So were they like your first Black Library books you read then?
Yes, they were. Yeah, they were the first ones. I read a few others since. The last one being Betrayer with Angron. I thought that was absolutely awesome. That book, I just almost couldn't put it down. Actually, I remember reading it on a flight to China, and it was just amazing. And the ending I thought was just absolutely incredible. And it was just. I think the books are so well written, you can really have a real sort of you feel like you have a real personal relationship with the characters.
Yeah.
Similar things that other shows, sort of other TV shows that have done in the past. And so I can't wait to read the next book, whichever one that will be. I think there's a lot to choose from, a lot of different paths you can go down, and just really looking forward to it.
You're absolutely right there. Black Library, there are some duff books out there. I'm not gonna, I'm a fanboy, but I'm honest with it. But there's a lot of good stuff to choose from as well, and once you find those authors like Aaron, who wrote Betrayer, Aaron's books are all of A quality up there, so you'll never go far wrong with him either. So if you ever need any hints and tips, Twitter is a good place for that. You'll get all kinds of responses on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your first tournament then? Independent tournament?
The first tournament I played in was right at the end of 7th edition. It was when the Chaos Space Marines got a lot of like codexes. I think with I used an army it was Battlefield Birmingham.
Sure.
It was called, and the Death Guard Victorium, I think it was called.
Yeah.
I used that, and so it was one of the few sort of really good competitive choices for Chaos at the time. And I knew I had quite a lot of time to get an army painted up and stuff like that. And the models were going to be really cool to paint because I hadn't painted anything Nurgle before and Death Guard, so I was really, really looking forward to that. I used the 30k Marines from the is it the Betrayal of Karth? Is that what that was from?
Betrayal of Karth, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. And so I used all the Marines for that as my Death Guard Marines, and I actually did really well at the tournament. I actually came 9th, which I was really happy with 4 wins and a loss. And I also got 3rd for Best Painted Army as well, which was really cool. So I did these Death Guard bikers. I posed the bikes in all kinds of different positions, with this really kind of swamp kind of atmosphere, I guess, kind of like to represent what it would be like, I guess, with the Death Guard on the planet and stuff. And everyone sort of really enjoyed that. And got some priceless tips off YouTube once again with how to like do Death Guard models, how to like weather them and stuff like that with different like sort of oils and oil paints and stuff like that, which was really cool. And they still the whole army sits very proudly in my cabinet, and sort of like I was off and running after that.
Awesome. I think we should probably just say that there is a video. It was the Snooker Association or something put out a video on YouTube of you talking about the hobby and showing off some of your models. That's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah,
as well.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, the World Snooker Association came down to my. They visit like quite a lot of the top players, so they try and get like the top sort of like 10 or 12 players in the world and just go around to their house or meet them somewhere and just show everyone a bit of what they do in their downtime and stuff like that to help try and to promote the players and to just see other sides to them. And so that was really cool when they came to my house and with my like cabinet there and like airbrush and paints and all that sort of stuff. And I just quickly sort of like was painting like a bloodletter for them just to sort of show them. It was awesome. The video's been really well received and got a lot of fantastic feedback from it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good-looking stuff in there. It's cool to see. So I think we're getting a lot more of that with anyone in the public eye now, whether it's sports people or actors or whatever, seeing a bit more of their private life, which I also think is a good thing when people see you through a screen mainly, and therefore they develop their opinions on you based on what you're like at work.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't have to deal with that as regular people. But you are how you appear on TV and your results, and that's it. And even I think it was at your I clicked onto you talking about your results at Bad Moon, and within 4 comments, good old Twitter was if you maybe concentrated more on playing snooker, you'd be better, or what? Some inane,
so funny.
some inane comment like that. Like you're not allowed any free time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I should be playing snooker 18 hours a day,
Yeah.
getting 5.5 hours sleep a night, and then having half an hour to have a shower, brush my teeth, or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's just like, you're always going to get sort of like the trolls and stuff like that, but that's all good. It's it's absolutely fine. I'm sort of I'm bulletproof to all that sort of stuff now. So yeah, it's all good. I think the 99.9% of the positive comments sort of certainly outshine any kind of like negative ones out there.
In general, because obviously most people are going to follow you on Twitter because of your exploits on the table, on the snooker table, shall we say? How have you found the reaction to every now and then posting up something hobby? Have you ever posted pictures of your models on Twitter?
Yeah, sometimes I do it on Instagram a bit as well. I guess on like Facebook as well, like Facebook on the like the Games
page.
Workshop painters page, or various ones like that. And the feedback's always really, really good. I get some stick from some of the other players saying, "Oh, you're meant to be a grown adult. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But no, it's all good. It's all really positive, and like a lot of people will see how I am on the snooker table, and obviously, to be world class, you've got to be really ruthless and be a top competitor, and you can't always be like joking and and stuff like that on TV. You got to be very serious, and so people's opinions have actually changed towards me when they've seen me post stuff or talk about hobbying and things like that on social media, where they'd say, "Oh wow, I actually never really liked you watching you play snooker. Like, I always thought you were really arrogant, but now I've seen you do this. Wow, you're like you're my favorite player now." It's like, well, yeah. I mean, obviously, while I'm at work and while I'm trying to like beat the other guy, I'm not gonna show the sort of side to me that I am like away from the table in my personal life. So I think that a lot of people in the public can get very set in their ways about how they judge somebody just purely by watching them when they're competing, So it's nice to be able to show people the other side of me as well.
Yeah, it humanises you. What always makes me laugh is that people will always review, and sports people are a classic for this. They'll always review them while they're at work, and they'll be, "Oh, why can't you do this? Why can't you do this?" And then they'll go into their job and be like, "I'm going to smash this sale." Like,
exactly.
And it's exactly the same thing. It's just that your job is, in part to entertain us. It's just one of those crazy little quirks. But having something like an outlet like that does kind of break down those barriers and means you're not that guy on the TV, which is pretty cool. So in general, no other snooker players playing Warhammer?
No, not so much play. Like some of them kind of like, "Oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid," or something like that. There's one player actually who's he's an amazing artist actually, but so he actually kind of like really appreciates what I do. He really kind of understands everything. He's actually done he did like a portrait of me actually for like to raise money for like a charity, and it was amazing what he did. So yeah, there's a few people who are like skilled in other areas of things and that, but yeah, no, there's no other sort of 40k hobbyists amongst the two, unfortunately.
There was always, I remember Steve Davis making the joke about going home to paint some orcs. I think it was on Question of Sport, and I don't think that one's ever been confirmed either way. But yeah, that's good.
Steve Davis is a bit of a nerd actually as well. He loves all that sort of stuff. He's quite intrigued by it actually. He always enjoys it when I show him photos of miniatures I've been painting and stuff like that.
Oh, good. Okay, so there's a little bit more info on that one. That's cool. So do you obviously? I mean, snooker is fairly UK centric, though. Southeast Asia, China is a big hotbed for snooker now, isn't it? Are you travelling a lot, or are you able to do most of your travelling like kind of within the UK?
Well, we go through like a bit of a period, I guess, from sort of August through to November, where we go to China 3 or 4 times. I've been to China for I think it was like 3 times in the space of like 6 weeks, which was, quite a lot of travel to do. And so don't have any more China trips coming up now until the end of March, which where I go to defend my China Open title, which I won last season. So just going to be pretty much based around the UK and Europe up until then, which is quite nice, which means that I'm going to be settled on sort of like one time zone now for quite a few months. Sure. And which makes it a lot easier to take things with me when I travel locally to tournaments. Like I can take like a small box of like paints and like a miniature that I'm working on or something like that, rather than actually like travel overseas. Because like customs in China, kind of like they make you open up everything and then they actually take the models out themselves and they want to grab it. And it happened one time. I was like, oh no, what are you doing? What are you doing? They might like chip the paint or something. And so I stopped doing that. So yeah, I just leave that to like the more local tournaments based in the UK.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So you do like to relax in an evening if you're obviously, you know, do you stay away when you're at an event unless you're close enough to home, so you get hotel painting
time?
Pretty
much. Yeah, the tournament I'm playing in coming up, which is the English Open, is in London. So just depending on the time and the schedule, but most often you stay in a hotel. Because I mean, my daughter's only just past 6 months now as well, so it's probably not the most ideal preparation in between matches. Is to have a couple of nights where sleep's probably not the best. So it's always best to kind of get away and stay in a hotel during events.
Excellent, yeah. And the old, do you have a very good travel lamp? It's the amount of times I've seen people trying to paint underneath a hotel light.
Oh, I've made that mistake before. Yeah, I've tried to paint under, and it's just absolutely dreadful. Yeah, it's funny actually because you think you've done an okay job under the circumstances, and then all of a sudden you get your mini under like decent lighting, and you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? Yeah. So yeah, I've got a really good one actually. Yeah, it travels really well. It's very light, and so I guess that's probably something that's improved greatly over the years. Is the different sort of like hobby lamps and things like that you can get now as well.
Yeah, definitely. And have you ever had a model with paint drying before an event? I've been involved in independent tournaments for a long time, and I've seen glue drying on models as the first game's being played.
No, I'm pretty well. The Battlefield Birmingham tournament, because a friend of mine told me that's quite strict with like painting requirements. You got to like have the 3 colors and all that sort of stuff, and every model has to be based. And so I'm not really one of these people who can just like base a model with some PVA glue and some sand and just like dip them in sand and then go, yep, that's based. I have to try and kind of do my best. And so I was up until like about 3:30. In the morning, making sure everything looked right because I was really paranoid about, maybe my army won't pass. And so, I was in the tournament sort of like getting my models out. I was worried that maybe like I'd packed them away a bit too soon or something like that. But luckily enough, everything was okay. Yeah.
Well, you're never a true hobbyist till you have that panicky moment attending a tournament. That is for sure. So. If we go back to the tournaments, I appreciate this. This chat has gone completely scattershot, but that's generally the way I do things. That's cool.
That's right. That's cool.
With the events, was that something as soon as you kind of found out about tournaments that you were extremely keen to do?
It's interesting because I've found it to be a little bit frustrating in some ways where. Whatever I do in life, I just have this thing where I have to give it 100%, no matter what it is. I have to try and be as good as I can at it. Like I can't just I couldn't pick up a set of golf clubs and just be happy with smashing the ball around the golf course and playing terrible and having a good time. Like I just can't do that. So that's why I treat Warhammer really seriously, where I've got to try and paint as good as I can. And also play as well as I can. Like I don't really want to go to a tournament and go, 0 wins and 5 losses and then kind of have a good time. Like some people can actually do that. They have a few beers and all that and really enjoy their games. And I'm really happy for those kind of people that do that. And it's really important to enjoy the hobby however you want to enjoy it. So, and that's probably the great thing about it. But I always try to do as well as I can, and probably one of the frustrating things is in some tournaments I've played in, like a loss has come where I didn't really know exactly what the other guy's army could do.
Sure.
So not like somebody would go, haha, my army does this. Like, it wouldn't be like a gotcha moment. It would just be something that I just didn't know what the army did. And I find that in 40K, it's really hard to actually know what every single army does. So sometimes you have to go into matches kind of semi-blind and just kind of hope that you've prepared yourself as well as possible. So from that point of view, it can be a little bit frustrating. But overall, I think I do a pretty good job in trying to understand, what all the kind of different armies can do. I think that there's a lot of really good battle reports and stuff like that out there now, where you can really understand like what the armies do, like codex reviews and things like that. So so it's really good. I'd love to be able to win a tournament one day. That'd be awesome. But obviously, snooker comes first, and I've got to make sure that that's my main focus, and I don't get too carried away with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a number of points in that. First off, having that focus on your daytime job is something I've seen a lot of people struggle with down the years, and it's not just daytime job. That's wife and any other commitments you've got. At the end of the day, even if you're taking Warhammer seriously, you're not earning a living from it. Very few people do. So it has to be that secondary thing that, if something happens at home, you've got to say, fine, that the hobby's going to suffer, don't you? You've got to be very sensible. But it's not uncommon to see people struggling with that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like games, like, in tournaments, games are scheduled to go for 2.5 hours to 3 hours. So, you got to try and get like practice games into, to learn your own army as well. And, so that's like a lot of time to sort of put aside to do something. And obviously if you're playing with a friend or something, you got to maybe get down to the store or something, or maybe you got a table at home. I'm actually building a table at home, so I don't have to drive to the store anymore, so I can save a bit of time and just play games a bit more freely without sort of having to worry about a shop closing or something like that. Because I've got a few friends who play in tournaments who live pretty close by, so it'd be pretty cool. But yeah, it's like scheduling like 4 hours out of your time, and I don't have a lot of spare time. Sometimes I do when my season's over. I've got a good couple of months off where I have that time. But during a season, I've got to be very careful with my time. And obviously Mila, my partner, my fiance, I've got a son who's 9 years old and a daughter who's just turned 6 months. So I've got to be very careful the way I like choose my time. And that because quite a few years ago I used to have a problem with like playing video games a bit too much.
Sure.
And so I've done a few interviews with kind of like on video game addiction and how time can just fly by too quick, and how you can sort of neglect your family life a little bit without intending to do so. And so that's why with 40K and the hobby in general, I've been very careful and very aware that I don't get too caught up in it, and then I, spend the time with the family, and then use my actual spare time sort of on the hobby, which is very important, because I think a lot of people probably who have full-time jobs who try to play competitively on the tournament scene a lot, they're away most weekends. That's a lot of time to sort of like not be around your family, and so that's why anyone listening or anything like that, the most important thing is to make sure that your family's happy to to give up the time to let you play in these tournaments.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it's fair to say this hobby attracts its fair share of people with that tend towards an obsession. We're collectors a lot of the time, and we dive deep into what we do. I sit here in my studio, which is the second largest bedroom in inverted commas in the house, which won't be a bedroom for a long time. Hopefully, we're due a kid in March. We bought that.
Wow, nice one.
Yeah, thanks. We bought the house knowing that we were probably going to have a kid, so we needed an extra room for recording, because I record so many podcasts. And I look at my shelf with the whole limited edition collection of all the Horus Heresy books, and then the model case and everything else. And it's like, actually, no, this is cool. I made sure that there's a TV and a settee in here as well, so that even if I'm recording, my missus wants to come and sit and read a book, with me, she can.
Yeah.
And I've found every now and then I'm sitting there thinking, no, I won't do any painting tonight. I'm going to go and sit in the front room and watch some terrible TV show she's chosen to watch, because it would be too easy not to do that, and then that would form a habit, and that's that's not a path that I can afford to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, spot on. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, thanks. So obviously, you talk there about you can't do anything in half measures, and that's I think it's from reading books and listening to podcasts and everything else. I think that's probably a more common attribute in successful sports people, and in fact sometimes successful people. Period. So, do you ever find you're approaching the game? Do you approach the game similar to the way you approach your snooker?
Yeah. So I think, so say for example, at a tournament, I think a lot of guys will, even the ones who aspire to do well in the tournaments, they will, be playing on Saturday, and then they'll, some of them will go out all night, and get drunk and all that sort of stuff, and then go into the Sunday and then, lose their first game on the Sunday. Maybe they're 3 wins, 0 losses on the first day. And then, they play their first game on the Sunday quite hungover and stuff. And then they get beaten. And they're like, I went out the night before and stuff like that, where I could never really do that. If I'm 3 wins, 0 losses after the first day, like there's no way I'm going to go out and get drunk, because I know it's going to jeopardize greatly the chances you'd have on the Sunday. I guess some people might be able to get away with it if they're like, a fair bit younger, but I probably certainly couldn't get away with it, I think, now.
Sure.
And so I approach it very seriously. I think it is quite funny, actually, the hobby, because you see a lot of people like they're basically living off like Pringles cans and Coke throughout the whole day, and you just know they're so tired and everything like that. And whereas I'm just drinking as much water as possible, because playing 3 games of 40k in one day is really tough. That is a lot of you're playing like up to 3 hours a game, and that saps so much concentration out of you. And, when you got to try and follow that up on the Sunday, it's very difficult. So, I try to eat as well as I can when I'm away and try to prepare really well, and do everything as I would, if I was doing it for a living, I guess. Yeah,
they're always that outlier. There's the Tony Adams, if you will, during his heavy drinking days was still performing. Dennis Bergkamp's biography is amazing, the way he talks about Tony Adams while he was in that culture. I played the South Coast Grand Tournament, is one of the larger Age of Sigmar events, and there's a bit of a legendary guy called Sedge who was literally carried out of the venue the night before on 3 wins and went and smashed 3 opponents the next day as well. But there are those who are the exception to the rule, that's for sure. But
definitely,
the problem is you get aspiring players. You think, that's the way to do it, and then they try to do that, and it doesn't go so well. No, exactly. And your day can go bad enough. We used to call it doing a Leeds in Warhammer. Climb to the top of the table day 1 and then disappear into obscurity on day 2, which for a certain generation of a football fan, that's very poignant. But we've all had our times doing that, and sometimes it doesn't work. But if you are serious about competition, and a lot of people are, and it's funny you talking about playing hobby, whichever way you want to hobby that way. I still think there's a stigma attached to people who want to perform well in a game. When that's fine, that's the way you want to hobby. That's what a lot of these tournaments now with the ITC and everything else are all aimed at, and that's cool. But if you want to do well, then you have to take those measures. Otherwise, you can't blame anyone but yourself when you make that stupid error. Even game 4 or whatever, because you're just too tired because you've got 2 hours sleep the night before, even if you weren't drinking.
Absolutely. And that's the last thing you want to happen, is that, after a tournament, you look back, you don't really want to have any regrets where you thought, oh, geez, I wish I didn't because you can go out and get drunk whenever you want. Do you know what I mean? Why choose a tournament to do it? I mean, I know maybe some people, they don't get that many weekends away or something, so I totally get it from that point of view. But if you are trying to, really do as well as you possibly can, then in the long term, then you got to try and look after yourself as well as you can.
And I suppose a lot of, the various, now we've got various podcasts and YouTube channels who are treating 40k seriously in terms of a competitive game, looking at making it a form of e-sport, if you will, something like that. And people are starting to talk about this kind of thing. And I think it's very easy sometimes for people to listen and go, oh yeah, but we're not professional athletes. But I think, it kind of equates quite well to snooker. In that, your physical exertions in snooker are not the same as going out and playing American football, but the body still needs to be alert. The mind definitely still needs to be very alert for a long period of time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, snooker's not a sport where you're running about on a football pitch and sort of getting smacked in tackles and things like that. But the mental concentration required is absolutely incredible. Like a professional footballer could never be like a professional snooker player, as much as a professional snooker player couldn't be a professional footballer. They're just two totally different requirements. And 40k is something where you need I think you need a certain amount of intellect as well to play the game well. You need to be able to math things out very quickly if you want to try and finish a game on time and to be able to get as many turns in as possible. And I think that's with the things like all the streaming, all the tournaments that are being streamed on Twitch and stuff like that. We've seen it with the London GT. More and more companies are coming on board with 40k and do see an opportunity there to get it going towards that esports vibe. I know that before Jeff Robertson passed away, he was doing amazing things with the hobby, with streaming, and obviously with his experience with StarCraft and everything like that. He gave the hobby an amazing boost, and so I'm sure that, and I think that was always his dream, was to see it become like an e-sport. And I'm sure with everything that he's done to help lay the foundations, that it will be for sure one day, because the popularity in the hobby is growing and growing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely is. I'm very much not a tournament gamer in that sense anymore. I did my fair share of trying to compete at events, and I did manage to win one fairly decent-sized Warhammer event back in the day. But it's a weird thing for me to see. But I think it's very. You've got to be very clear that just because that's happening doesn't mean they're taking your Warhammer away from you. This game can be played in such a huge variety of ways, can be enjoyed in a variety of ways, from reading to painting to people who just like modelling to playing the game to dressing up as characters. It's got that huge scope in there, and there's space for everyone's hobby to fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you get recognised at events?
Some, like, it depends. If I'm wearing like a beanie or something like that, or a hat, then maybe not so much. But yes, some of the other times I certainly do. I've played a couple of matches where my opponent sort of like just talking to me for like pretty much on all of my turns, just talking to me about snooker and stuff like that, which is quite funny. But it's been really good, actually. It's been really cool to be able to, I guess, get recognised amongst like the hobbyists and stuff like that. It's just really cool. And I think that anyone involved in the hobby is almost going to get along pretty much straight away. I think that you generally have the same sort of interests and stuff like that, and you meet a whole wide range of fantastic people, and which is something that I really enjoy about the hobby, because not all the time am I surrounded by people that have a lot of common interests with myself. So it's nice to sort of be able to break away from that and to be, and to hang around people that I really enjoy their company, and just, chat about nerdy things like Star Wars, Star Trek, or, what Game of Thrones, like whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's really cool to sort of like, escape that, I suppose, and to just really enjoy hanging around those type of people. Yeah,
sure. That's my wife just coming in the door. Bless her. But if anyone's wondering what the noise is, but you're absolutely right. I've been part of football and cricket clubs all my life, and the cricket club I'm part of at the moment, we've got we've got our president is Derek Underwood, who's one of England's greatest ever spinners, if not their greatest ever spinner.
Wow!
And really,
I love my cricket.
Yeah, I see that on your Twitter. But we have people from, we have me. I'm a working class bloke. We've got people within my old club. People who used to go to Eton, and people who worked in the city, and then people who worked on farms. And I find that within the hobby, it's an even wider range of people than I've experienced through football or cricket or anything like that. And Emma, my wife, has come with me to events. She's helped me run events before, and just I think she was really surprised the first few times in just how nice people are, and the variety of people that are there, and how everyone, because we have that common interest, we can get on, but also how interesting the people are who do the hobby. I mean, as a social hobby, people are able to talk to each other. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to play the game that well either, would you? Which is always a bit of a help. But yeah, you can meet, as I say, one of the guys I know. Black Library authors have come to my events before. Bloke who worked for the BBC as a journalist, some really interesting stories, and you can meet you on the other end of the table as well. As well as the bloke who just does that job you've never heard of. It's a great weekend away with these people, discovering new friends. And I know, because I've been doing this a long time now, I've gone to America and stayed in people's houses who I've met online through the hobby. When I go to Adepticon, it's fantastic. It's like going to a second or third home.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'd always love to go to one of the real big events like Adepticon or Nova, or like LVO, something like that. I'd love to experience being in one of those events. Sadly, the snooker season is always on during those
Sure.
events. I always have to catch up, watch them on Twitch or something like that. So, it's just amazing how much like the hobby's growing worldwide, and the exposure and everything like that. I think even in Australia and like China have just started holding tournaments. So it's kind of crazy just how quick it's been able to expand over the last few years, and which is great to see, because there's only one winner when that happens, and that's everyone involved in the hobby.
Yeah, definitely. It was the old saying, is a rising tide floats all boats, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm slightly butchering that quote, but a healthy tournament scene even helps local fun gamers, as it were, because the game gets better and it gets expanded and everything else. Are you aiming towards any events at the moment? Have you got anything in the pipeline, or are you in a full work mode at the moment?
I try to sort of like plan. I mean, sometimes, I could get knocked out in a snooker tournament, like before the weekend, and sometimes there's like an opportunity to maybe squeeze into a tournament. It just all depends. I can't really plan ahead too well.
Sure.
I kind of have to wait until maybe like a last minute, and then I'll contact like the tournament organizer or something and say, is there any like withdrawals, or can you put me on like a reserve list or something like that? I know I can definitely make the LGT next year, because the dates have been moved to June, and that's during my off season when I'm not playing any snooker at all. So that's something to really sort of like aim for, and I'll hopefully try and get to a couple of events before the new year. And see how well I can do. I guess the good thing is, like with the ITC, they've got like the rankings, so you can kind of set a lot of like personal goals of where
Sure.
you want to be. So I think you got to get like 5 tournaments to qualify to get like a ranking, and I think I've played in like 4 events or something like that, and I've finished like top 10 a few times, so like I've done pretty well. And so that's just like a little goal to set myself before like the ITC rankings reset, is to try and finish as high as I can this year. Very much so as a part-time player, but at least it's just something nice to aim for with the limited time that I can get. So it's like there's some guys who get to play in tournaments every weekend, and then there's people who don't. But you can customize your goals based on how often you can play, which is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even hobbyists can set their goals, can't they? They want to.
Yeah, because I mean they have like the hobby track as well, like the like the best painted armies and things like that. Or you can set your own goals where if you want to enter painting competitions or doing whatever. That's what makes the hobby amazing. Is that you can sometimes you get people who enjoy just the hobby, who just enjoy painting or just converting models, and then you get people who just enjoy like playing the game, who aren't particularly great painters, but they really enjoy playing. And then, then you get the people who enjoy the hobby, they enjoy playing, they enjoy the lore, they enjoy everything. And then, so you get a whole range of different people who enjoy the game and enjoy the hobby in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic, and it's better now than it ever has been. Whatever anyone tells you, we're living in the golden times of wargaming at the moment. Well, I think we've probably come to a nice conclusion there. Thanks for joining me. It's been fantastic having a chat. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been awesome. It's this is the first podcast I've been on. I know a couple of guys have tried to grab me, but I've not been able to get like Pablo Martinez, who does like the Frontline Gaming, the chapter tactics. It's been a lot more difficult with the time zones.
Yes.
Adam Abramovich from Best General as well. So, so I've got a couple of that I'm going to be doing, and which is really good. Hopefully, creates more interest with the hobby and stuff. And no, this is brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. It was to cover all the different areas of the hobby and stuff like that. It's been awesome.
Well, it's been great to chat with you. Hopefully, your travel arrangements over the next year will improve slightly. If anyone wants to follow Neil's Twitter, you've had a bit of an eventful year, haven't you?
My season so far, the start of my season, it's been kind of crazy. I think the first tournament of the season, I got stuck on a runway for 3 hours while a private jet landed, and then the tyre burst, and then there was loads of debris, so we had to wait while they cleaned that up, and then storms came over London, and every flight for the next sort of 16 hours was cancelled, and so I missed that event, unfortunately. I withdrew from an event in China because I got a horrendous chest infection, which I've never had to withdraw from a match before. And then the last one was for a qualifying game. I learned that there's 2 Barnsleys in the UK. I jumped in my car and then put in Barnsley, and my sat nav took me to the wrong Barnsley, and so I missed my qualifying game. So that's one event where perhaps that's a free weekend. Then I might be able to play in a Warhammer tournament or something. So but I'm sure if I post that I'm at that Warhammer tournament, everyone will jump on social media saying that I drove to the wrong Barnsley on purpose or something, so I could play Warhammer.
Absolutely, you would have been so much better if you just concentrated. There's all these people who truly understand top level sport. Bless them. It's all good fun. Anyway, thank you for coming on, and I hope to chat to you again soon.
Yeah, no worries, bud. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Cheers.